Hey, welcome back, everybody. And today we're going to be doing another Freight Broker Bootcamp Live like I do every Monday at noon Eastern Time. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to share with you the real reason why new freight brokers fail. The real reason why new freight brokers fail. Now, if you're not prepared for some tough love today, you may want to click away. But I'm also going to give you some value and inspiration as a part of this. But today we're going to talk about the real reason why new freight brokers fail. So for those of you that are just joining me, or you're catching this, if you're catching this on replay, awesome. Hit me up in the comments below with hashtag replay. I'd love to hear from my replay folks. Even if you can't make it live, I'd love to hear from you. Now, for those of you that have joined me live, I almost fell there. For those of you that joined me live or joining me live right now, whether that be on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you are, okay, in the world, hit me up in the comments and let me know the city and state that you're logging in from. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to see where people are coming in from. We have people from all over the United States, in California and Texas and Florida and New York and Ohio and Michigan. And we have people from other countries like Canada and Mexico and South America and Africa and Europe and Asia and England. I mean, people from all over the world, Ukraine, join these Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Some of them are current students of Freight Broker Bootcamp, which I'll talk about in a minute. And some of them are just people that have found me on YouTube, or maybe one of their friends referred them to this weekly live training. So hit me up in the chat box. I'll give you a quick shout out. Let me know where you guys are coming in from. Big shout out. Welcome. Let's see who we got. So let me do this real quick, and then we're going to jump into the training. We got Martin Unger from Selma, California. Welcome. We got Letty Bustus from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have JAH 1963 from Arlington, Texas. We have NST Logistics from PA. Who else we got here? Geez, we got Tej Sethi from Toronto, Ontario. We got JT Tao from Sacramento, California. We got Budal Aziz from Houston. We got Monesha Fezia from Georgia. If I murder your name or the city and state where you're coming in from, I apologize. I do my best. Sometimes the font's a little small here. Welcome Henry from Texas. Welcome Shay Porter from Cartersville, Georgia. Erica Anthony from Augusta, Georgia. Welcome some random Facebook user from Lakeland, Florida that I can't see their name. Welcome Sarah from Windsor, PA. Welcome E. Guzman 0430 from Eric from New York City, from NYC. Awesome. Welcome Miguel from New Jersey. Matthew from the West Coast. Don Benham from Cuba, New York. Charlton Weathers from Florida. Welcome Patty from Indianapolis. Welcome Love Slack from Atlanta, Georgia. Ernest Berry from Dallas, Texas, always here. Welcome Ashish Marwaha from Los Angeles, California. Shane Marsh, welcome as a new student from Florida. Welcome Michael from Salt Lake City. Matthew from, didn't say. Good morning, Matthew. James Valdez from Peoria, Arizona. Cindy Kane, as always, from Houston, Texas. Welcome. Corey Miller from St. George, Utah. All right, listen, we got a lot of people. If you couldn't tell, we got a lot of people live. So I'm excited. It means you guys are excited. If you're new to this stream, fantastic. I'd love to hear from you. I'm glad you're here. Participate. Here's how it's going to work. I'm going to go over a short training. We're going to talk about the real reason why new freight brokers fail. Then I'm going to do a giveaway. I'm going to give away a small prize. I'm going to give away a prize just for being here live. I'm going to give away a prize. I'll give you some instructions on that. And then we're going to do live Q&A at the end. So who wants a prize? For those that want to get potential or the opportunity to win a prize, sometimes I give away a shirt. Sometimes I give away a book. Sometimes I give away money. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to give away today, but I am going to do a giveaway. So if you guys want to be a part of the giveaway and have a chance to win something during this live, I'm going to give it away live today. All you have to do is go out and first like the stream, where you're at on YouTube or Facebook, hit the like button, and then share the stream. You can share it on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Pinterest. I don't care where you share it. Make sure you share the stream. If you're unable to share the stream, here's all I want you to do. In the comments, I want you to tag 3 people that you know. So that's another option, right? I didn't think of this option before, but you can either share the stream and then come back in and hit hashtag shared, or you can simply tag 3 people that you know in the comments below that you think might be interested in this. Either way is great. No problems. I'll see all those in the comments, and then that's how I'm going to select a winner, okay? So for those of you that are just joining me, okay, for while you guys are sharing the stream or tagging some people that you know in the comments, today's topic is the real reason why new freight brokers fail. And I think you might be surprised, but I'm going to enlighten you, and I'm going to share a little story, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this. So before we dive into that, again, hit me up in the comments after you share the stream or when you tag people, let me know. And then after this training, but before we do the live Q&A, I'm going to give away the free prize, okay? Give away the prize. Now, you are going to have to be in the United States in order for an opportunity to get the prize. I apologize, but the shipping cost going to the Ukraine or somewhere in Mexico or South America or Africa is just going to be astronomical, and it's not worth, it's worth more than the prize itself. So I apologize. In order to qualify for the prize, you're going to have to be in the United States, okay? At least for now, okay? Maybe in the future we'll have a giveaway that will include the entire world. I don't know. It'll probably have to be something digital, but I've been giving away physical products like shirts and cash and even books and things of that nature. So make sure you share the stream or tag 3 people in the stream, either on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever. All right. So here we are, guys. Today, I'm going to share with you the reason why new freight brokers fail. And I think you're going to be a little bit surprised. But before we dive into that, what I want you to understand, the topic that we're going to dive into is the difference between resources and resourcefulness. Okay? The difference between resources and resourcefulness. Now, I have 3 pages of notes that I'm going to go over today. Okay? And so it's important. This is going to be a pretty quick training, but I've got a lot to go over. Okay? First, let's talk about what is a resource. A resource is something that you use to obtain a goal or to obtain an objective. That's a resource. While resourcefulness is the ability to use and leverage resources to overcome difficulties. All right, so internalize that for a second. I want you to let that tumble around in your head. Resources are something that you use to obtain an outcome or an objective or a goal. Resourcefulness is the ability to leverage and use those resources to overcome difficulties. All right, so the fact is, if your goal is to become a successful freight broker or a successful freight agent, you are going to need to learn both. But in particular, the most important of those is you need to learn how to be resourceful. Okay? So that's part of what we're going to talk about today. That's an important part. So what you have to understand is with every opportunity, with every goal, right, challenges are going to arise. That's just the nature of opportunities and goals, right? Especially when they're worthwhile. Typically, when obstacles arise, excuses in many times will follow right behind. And many people will point to the lack of resources, why they're unable to achieve their goals or why they fail to take action. All right. They'll point to the lack of skills or the lack of training or the lack of technology or the lack of people or connections, the lack of money or the lack of time. Okay, so those are just an example of some of the resources that people will point to as excuses why they fail to take action or to achieve their goals. Now, you hear money and time all the time. Those are the most common culprits that you're going to find when it comes to people pointing to resources as an excuse or a reason why they have not been able to succeed. All right. But what you have to understand, the best way to overcome a lack of resources is to become resourceful. So that's what we're going to talk about. If you lack a skill, like let's say it's sales, be resourceful and invest time and energy into learning and practicing that skill. Or you need to figure out a way to outsource or hire somebody that can do that for you. That's an example of being resourceful. Okay. You lack training. Well, be resourceful. Find an online course like Freight Broker Bootcamp, or find a mentor. Part of why you're here, probably week after week, is because I've become a mentor of sorts. And I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. I'll be your mentor. I'll be your coach. And so that's part of this process. So if you lack training, find a course, again, like Freight Broker Bootcamp or others, and or find a mentor, or both. You lack money. Well, be resourceful. Go get a second job. Save your money. Invest your money. Okay? You got to understand. Or both. Or go borrow the money from somebody that you know, like I did when I first started my first business. I borrowed $1,500 that I didn't have, and I didn't know how I was going to pay back. But that was back in the early 90s. I was able to pay that loan back very quickly. The business thrived. It was very profitable. And here I am today, many businesses later, and a lot of blessings along the way. So if you lack time, be resourceful. Learn how to prioritize your time. Learn how to manage your time. Learn how to organize your time. Prioritize your time, and you will be shocked how much time you actually have. So those are examples of being resourceful in a situation where you're pointing to resources as the reason for your failure, or the reason for your lack of action, or the reason for the lack of motivation, or whatever the case may be. All right. What you have to understand, this is really important. And I heard this years ago from Tony Robbins, who's been a mentor of mine for many, many years. You have to stop telling yourself that story. I don't have time. I don't have the money. You have to stop telling yourself that story. That's a story that you play over in your head time and time and time again. And eventually you start to believe it. But that's BS. Okay? It's because you're not committed. It's because you haven't burned the boats. Okay? You lack the commitment to move forward. And that's the true issue. Okay? So remember, resourcefulness is the ability to find a quick and clever way to overcome difficulties. Okay, so let me point to an example. Some of you have probably remember the old TV show MacGyver. Okay, MacGyver was this guy who was able to fix or solve any problem very quickly with bubblegum and duct tape, right? He always would find the situations that he was in, and he would be very creative, and he would be very persistent as a way to overcome those obstacles. That's an example of being resourceful. Okay. Again, it's never a lack of resources that is the reason for your failure. It's the lack of resourcefulness. All right. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. I think you'll enjoy this. So bear with me here. It's a quick story, and I think you'll like it. Okay. So I'm going to read this because I don't have it memorized. Once upon a time, a young donkey asked his grandpa, "How do I grow up just like you?" "Oh, that's simple," the elder donkey said. "All you have to do is remember to shake it off and step up." "What does that mean?" asked the younger donkey. The grandfather replied, "Let me tell you a quick story. Once, when I was your age, I was walking. I wasn't paying attention and fell deep into an old abandoned well. I started braying and braying. Finally, an old farmer came by and saw me. I was scared to death. But then he left. I stayed in the well all night long. The next morning, he came back with a whole group of people, and they looked at me. Then the old farmer said, 'Well, the well is abandoned, and that donkey isn't worth saving, so let's get to work.' And believe it or not, they started to shovel dirt into the well. I was going to be buried alive. After the first shovel of dirt came down on me, I realized something. Every time dirt landed on my back, I could shake it off and use it to step up a bit higher. They kept shoveling, and I kept shaking it off and stepping up. Shake it off, step up, shake it off, step up. I kept repeating this. To myself for encouragement. And it wasn't long before I stepped out of the well, exhausted but triumphant. So no matter how difficult the situation is, no matter how bad things get, no matter how much dirt gets dumped on you, just remember, shake it off and step up. You'll be all right. The moral of that story is very simple. When you're out of resources, It's time to get resourceful. Okay? So what I want you to understand is it's not your fault why you're pointing to the lack of resources. It's not your fault that you make excuses. You're just emulating what you've seen from childhood. People that make excuses and people that quit. Right? It's not your fault. Here's the good news and what I don't want you to worry. I'm here to help. That's the reason why I put together Freight Broker Bootcamp. Now, Freight Broker Bootcamp is the most comprehensive and cost-effective online freight broker and freight agent training program available today online. You can ask anybody. Got tons of students that are probably watching this live, others that are going to catch this on replay, but ultimately we offer the most cost-effective and comprehensive online program. We have a 60-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. We've been in business for over 10 years, and we've trained over 8,000 students. I've lost track how many we've trained. It's probably closer to 10. I need to do an update. But ultimately, if you're curious about becoming a freight broker or freight agent, whether this is your first time in my live or whether this is your 100th time, but you haven't taken action, stop pointing to resources, become resourceful, and I'll help. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, I knew this was going to be a short training. We are going to do some live Q&A in a minute. We're going to give away the prize before we do the live Q&A. Let me grab a quick drink. Then we're going to give away the prize. Then we'll do the live Q&A. Okay? So, all right, cool. So, what is this? Propel. Okay, awesome. All right, guys. So we're going to give away the prize. All right. So we're going to give away the prize. I hope that you guys have all shared the stream. I hope that you tag somebody. If you haven't, I'm going to give you a minute really quick. If you don't want to share the stream, just tag 3 friends in the comments below. If particularly on Facebook, that'll be very easy. If you're on YouTube, you may have to share the stream because it's a little harder to tag people. But for my Facebook people, just tag a few friends. Okay, now this is the honor system with the sharing. So if you're going to share it on Facebook or share it on LinkedIn or share it on Instagram or Pinterest or wherever you're at, it's the honor system. I trust you. Okay, I trust that you're honorable and that you're going to do that because I can't validate it here while I'm live. I do look afterwards, but I can't validate it while I hear them live. So make sure you share the stream or tag people. Then I'm going to pick a quick winner, and then we're going to go on to live Q&A. So for those of you that have questions, hold your questions for another minute or so, and then we'll jump into those. Okay, so you have about 15 seconds to share the stream before I'm going to pick a winner. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, that's it. So that's what you guys got. So if you haven't shared the stream, if you're not in this week's drawing, maybe I'll do it again next week. This week, I'm going to give away another book. This is my favorite all-time book. This is the book that I've given away to hundreds of students, hundreds of employees, hundreds of friends, hundreds of people throughout my life. I've given away. This publisher, Dale Carnegie, should put me on commission. I'm not on commission, but he should, because I've given away so many copies of this book. It's crazy. All right. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. So I'm going to give a copy of that away. And here's what I'm going to do. I am going to randomly scroll up through, and I'm going to click, and whoever I pick, that's who's going to get it. I have a really informal way of doing it. I don't cheat. So just trust me that I'm going to scroll up through here, through the comments, and whoever I land on is who's going to get that book. Okay. And I will mail it out this week. So here we go. Ready? Let's see. What do we got here? All right. Cool. All right, here we go. I'm scrolling. The winner is Corey Miller. Corey Miller, you're the winner of How to Win Friends and Influence People. I will mail that out to you. Here's all I need you to do right now before we go into Q&A. Go into the Facebook page of the Freight Broker Bootcamp Facebook page and message me. I need your full name, your full address, and your phone number, okay? Your full name, your mailing address, and your phone number. Send those to me, and I will send you a copy of this book this week, courtesy of freightbrokerbootcamp.com. And again, for those of you that are curious about becoming a freight broker, freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. All right. So let's dive in. Congratulations, Corey. Congratulations, everybody who's won. Sometimes I give away this t-shirt. This is a popular one, Freightpreneur, someone who solves problems you don't know you have in ways you can't understand. Other times I'll give away money, and other times I will give away a book or some other prize. So cool thing, I'm going to give you a little teaser here. I'm going to be running a really cool YouTube contest soon. And I'm deciding on the prize, but it's going to be big. It's going to be big. Okay. We're talking about maybe 500, $1,000. Okay. So I haven't put it all together yet, but I just wanted to tickle you with that a little bit, particularly for those of you that join me live, whether it be through YouTube or Facebook. I'm going to be doing a YouTube contest, and I think you're going to love it because I'm going to give away probably $1,000, right? I haven't finalized it yet, but I think that'd be pretty cool. So, all right, awesome. All right, so what do we got here? All right, so hit me up in the chat box with some questions. Now, the questions can be about today's lesson. It can be about anything freight broker, freight agent related, okay? I will do my absolutely best to answer your questions. I promise you that I don't know everything, but I've got over 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur, have been very blessed, have done over $200 million as a freight broker. So I think I might be able to help or at least lend some direction or point you in the right direction. So hit me up with some questions and we will go from there. So, all right. So here's a question from Val, and that is, what's the difference between palletized versus floor loaded? Okay. So this is an easy one. Palletized freight is when you see the freight stacked on those wooden pallets, okay? So they've got the wooden pallets, they kind of look square, and they've got these slats on them, they're all made of wood, and then people will stack the freight on top of that, and then typically it will be wrapped with some sort of shrink wrap, okay? So that's what a palletized load is, okay? Now, if it's floor loaded, that means that there's not going to be a pallet, and the product is shipped and is going to be placed on the floor. Now, some types of product lean more towards palletized and other types of product are more floor loaded, okay? Floor loaded freight in a lot of cases is freight that doesn't really fit dimensionally on a pallet. So sometimes it might overhang the pallet, or there might be other issues. So they will floor load it, which means they're just going to load it right on the floor of the truck, of the trailer, whatever the trailer is. If it's a van, if it's a reefer, if it's a flatbed, whatever the case may be. Sometimes the freight is palletized, which is on those wooden pallets. And I would just suggest go to Google and search pallets, right? And you'll see an example of a pallet. And then if it's floor loaded, it's just going to be loaded directly on the floor. Okay. So good question. That's a real nuanced question. Never had that question before. So I love getting questions that I've never had. So thank you, Val. All right. Okay, so JT wants me to talk about freight claims. Okay, so let me explain to you the very high level of what a freight claim is. So when a shipper moves a product from point A to point B, sometimes during transit, while it's on that carrier, okay, the trucking company, sometimes while being transported during loading, during transport, or during offload, the product gets damaged. Whatever the case may be, let's say we have a palletized, we just talked about that, we have a palletized bunch of product that's widgets, and somehow the forklift pokes into the side of that wrapped product and damages the widgets, okay? So that can become what's called a freight claim. That freight claim is where the shipper files a claim against the carrier's cargo insurance, and that cargo insurance will typically cover the cost of that product, not the retail value, but the actual cost of that product. And that will be a part and covered by the carrier's insurance. So that's how a freight claim works. Okay, basic freight claim. All right. Now, as it relates to freight brokers are not liable for carrier freight claims. So you're not a carrier, so you don't have to have cargo insurance, and you don't have liability on freight claims or cargo damage. So your role as a freight broker is to simply help your shipper and your carrier to communicate the details of that claim. You do not subrogate the claim. You don't take responsibility for the claim. You don't owe the claim. You don't have to have cargo insurance to cover the claim. And so ultimately, as a broker, you are a third party that's helping both parties. You're helping your carrier and you're helping your shipper to rectify the claim so that everybody comes out of this, with fair, being a fair and equal process. Now, carriers know that if from the point that they accept a load, that's why they sign a bill of lading, which is a contract. From the point that they sign the bill of lading at the point of origin, they are responsible for that cargo. So that bill of lading is actually a contract, okay? It's a legal contract. It's a contract of carriage. So it means that once they sign and accept that freight, at that point, they're responsible for that freight all the way through to delivery until the receiver signs off and says the freight was delivered in good condition, or there's a damage claim in which they will note the damage claim on the actual bill of lading. They'll say 2 pallets were damaged or whatever the case may be, okay? So that's an example of what a freight claim is. That's the role as a freight broker, same as a freight agent. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't accept liability as a carrier and you'll be fine. Good question. All right, so here's a good question. Sherry is very honest and says, I have ADHD. So do I. Welcome to the club. I'm struggling to stay focused on what I can do to stay on task. Okay, so here's a couple things you can do. And these are just going to be things maybe you've heard before, but these are things that I do. When I need to focus on a task, I shut my phone off, or I leave my phone in the other room. And when I'm doing focused work, I need to shut the phone off, leave it in another room, turn off notifications on my phone. The phone is the biggest issue, okay? Your cell phone is your biggest issue. Secondly, if you're working on a computer, you need to shut off notifications, email notification, Slack notification, Facebook notifications. You need to make sure that none of those notifications are on because they are there to distract you. That's the goal. Their goal is to pull you away from what you're doing, to take your attention and put it elsewhere. That's another thing you can do. All right. What else can you do to stay focused? Staying focused. All right. So rather than having a big, long list, a to-do list, what I want you to do is I just want you to have a few really important prioritized tasks, the most important high-value tasks that you need to do today. I would say 3 is ideal, definitely no more than 5. Having a shorter list will allow you to stay more focused because you're not going to have to multitask and shift into 15 or 20 different things that you have to do that day. Okay? That's another one. What else can you do to stay focused? Staying focused here, I would tell you staying focused requires breaks. I take regular breaks, short 5 and 10 minute breaks. So about every 45 minutes to an hour, I'll take a 5 or 10 minute break. I'll take a quick walk. I'll go outside. I'll go pet the dogs. I'll grab a bite to eat. A lot of that happened during COVID, and that's thus the reason why I'm shedding a little bit of weight right now. I'm on a diet. So ultimately, yeah, those are a few examples or a few things that you might be able to do. There are probably lots of other things. Go to Google, search for, staying focused, and they might have some tips for you as well. But thanks for sharing, Sherry. Okay, so here's a question from Henry. And Henry says, Dennis, how do freight agents get paid by brokers? Is it weekly or by each load? Typically, here's how the brokers pay agents. They either pay them weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. What I find is that most freight brokers pay agents weekly, but you will sometimes get bi-weekly or even monthly. Now, monthly I think is way too long. I would suggest negotiating weekly or bi-weekly. Typically it's weekly, and when they do it, it's typically not sending you a physical check. It's usually an ACH or a wire of some sort where that transaction will go very quickly. Typically with established agents, it's going to be some sort of an ACH. So let's say, for example, you ran 10 loads last week, and each of those loads did $200 in profit, which is $2,000 in profit, not revenue, but profit, okay? That $2,000, if you're on a 50% commission, would mean you're going to get $1,000. So typically what happens is you don't get, sometimes you'll get paid on delivering the load. Sometimes you'll get paid on the invoicing of the load, okay? So my brokerage, when I had my brokerage before I sold it, we paid on delivered loads. So everything that was delivered by last Friday would be paid the following Friday, okay? and then we would invoice and collect and do all that. Okay. So it's going to vary, but ultimately most brokers are going to pay weekly or bi-weekly, and they're going to pay either based on delivered status or based upon invoiced, if they've already invoiced the shipper. So I hope that helps. All right. So I'm scrolling through. Give me a second here. Kevin James asks, what are good times to call shippers? You know, there is no perfect time. There's no perfect time to make sales calls, right? I can tell you that you will, depending upon, remember, number one, the time is going to vary depending upon the time zone. So if you're in New York and it's noon, you know, and you're making phone calls to the West Coast, that's 9 a.m. Okay. So because it's 3 hours difference. So I don't want you to get caught up in the perfect time, because that becomes, you know, where you're coming up with a reason not to make phone calls because of time. I can tell you that there are times that a lot of people don't think are productive, which I have found very productive: before 8 a.m., during lunch, after 4 or 5 o'clock. A lot of times brokers and agents won't call during those times because they don't think they're productive. But in reality, they can be very productive. Number one, because the bell hasn't yet rung yet, or they've got a little bit of a downtime. And sometimes you'd be shocked how much times they'll answer the phone. And secondly, you don't have as many people calling during those times. So those are some examples of some times you might want to test or check out. But again, I can't give you the perfect time. It doesn't exist. There is no perfect time. My suggestion is, if you try to contact a prospect in the AM multiple times and they're not picking up the phone, then try in the PM. If they're not picking up in the PM, then try the AM. Okay. You want to alternate, because sometimes people, if you call just AM 10 times and they never answer, you know, maybe that's because they really only take calls in the afternoon. Right. So those are a couple of tips. Hope that helps. All right, so I'm scrolling. Let me look for another question. Okay, so Spencer asks, good morning, Dennis. We're ready to scale up, but having a hard time finding new agents. Our goal was 10 agents for 2021. We only had 3. We love some resources on how to get more. Okay, so number one, it's going to depend on if you're looking for experienced agents with a book of business, or you're willing to take newer agents who are just getting started. Okay, so experienced agents as a new startup are going to be very challenging for you, predominantly because the product that you built, if you're newer, is probably not going to be as good of a product as established brokerages like my old brokerage, Logistic Dynamics, which has been doing an agent program for over a decade, right? We've done way more than that. We started our agent program back in 2006. Okay, so it's been 15 years. So we've been able to perfect that program and that product, which is really what that is. So if it's experienced agents, you're probably going to struggle as a new broker, but you can hire newer agents. Now there's tons of freight agents coming out of freightbrokerbootcamp.com. There are tons of agents coming out of other training programs. There are tons of agents which are self-trained. And so the place where you can go is you need to go where they go. So there are groups on Facebook and LinkedIn and other platforms where freight agents congregate. So think about, there's probably Facebook groups that are dedicated to new freight agents or training of some sort. There are probably groups on LinkedIn dedicated to the same thing. So you want to go where they go. All right. So that's one example. So I would say LinkedIn and Facebook would be 2 great resources for you to find experienced or inexperienced agents. Secondly, you can run a job ad on Indeed, okay, Indeed.com. If you're willing to take agents without a book of business, you're going to get flooded with resumes, with opportunities. I promise you, you're going to get flooded with them. And then you just have to filter through the best ones, do some interviews, and hire. And so there's another example. Another one is if you are a member of Freight Broker Bootcamp. If you are a paid member of Freight Broker Bootcamp, whether it's a gold membership or a platinum membership, whatever the membership is, we have a private members only Facebook group which has almost 1,000 members in it now. I just launched it not long ago. It's almost 1,000 members. Many of them are looking to become freight agents, and they don't have a book of business, but they've been trained and they have some level of experience. And so that's another resource. If you're a part of Freight Broker Bootcamp, you get that members only Facebook group for every paid member. So those are a few examples. I would say Indeed or some other job board. I would say LinkedIn and other social media. I would say load boards would be another good one. You'll have agents that are experienced and inexperienced on load boards. They'll be posting loads. So if you have access to load boards and you see that brokerages are posting from a variety of different locations, a lot of times that's because they are agents. Okay. And if you can't find people that are already operating as an agent, focus on freight brokers that are working inside of a freight brokerage. So I owned a freight brokerage, but when I first started, I had freight brokers working inside my freight brokerage as employees, W-2 employees. If you would have contacted one of them and offered them an agent position, they may have converted from W-2 over independent contractor, predominantly because there's an income increase, right? Typically, the income is going to go up as an agent as opposed to a W-2. Matter of fact, that's one of the primary sources that we use for recruiting new agents was people that were working as a job, as a W-2 position inside of a freight brokerage for another freight broker. And then they wanted to break out on their own because maybe they wanted more money, maybe they wanted more freedom, maybe they wanted more time, maybe they didn't like their boss, whatever the case may be. So I'm just giving you a quick brain dump here. I hope that helps. Yeah, be more clear. I'm not sure. If you have a customer who doesn't respond to your factoring company, what other options can you offer for quick pay? Well, I mean, quick pays are typically done through like Comdata, Comchecks, right? Through Comchecks or ACH of some sort. So those would be the way that you would do quick pays, right? Or fuel advances a lot of times. So I'm not quite sure I understand the question. If you want to get more specific, feel free to respond. Nelson Sanchez, is Carrier 411 sanctioned by the DOT to rate brokers and carriers? No, they don't need to be sanctioned. They don't need to be sanctioned. They have their own rating system, their own proprietary rating system. So they download data from the FMCSA, which is census data that every DOT and ICC broker and carrier fill out. And then that builds the profile. And then based on that profile, they've created some sort of algorithm or some sort of rating system, and they rate them. They don't need to be sanctioned by the DOT. Just know that it's a Carrier 411 independent rating, and it's only going to hold as much weight as they have credibility. Okay? Hope that answers your question, Nelson. So is fuel surcharge negotiated in the rate? Okay, so typically there's two ways you're going to rate freight. One is your line haul plus fuel, which is your per mile plus fuel. So you might hear somebody say, hey, it's $2 per mile plus fuel surcharge. And if your fuel surcharge is, 50 cents a mile, just hypothetically, or 30% or whatever the fuel surcharge is, that goes on top of on the line haul. Okay. Now that's one way. The other way, brokers are famous for quoting and is much easier. And sometimes shippers prefer this, is what's called an all-in rate. So what they want you to do is they want you to give an all-in rate. If you're going to be picking up a load at point A and delivering to point B, and it's 1,000 miles, and you're going to charge them, your freight plus fuel rate is $3,000 when you combine it all together, then you just give them that all-in rate. And that's determined, that's what's called an all-in rate. So there is no additional charges on top of that. There's no extra fuel. Now, there could be accessorial charges if there's incidental accessorials like detention or things of that nature, truck order not used, or not truck order not used, but detention in particular. So you have freight like your freight plus fuel, or you do an all-in rate. So those are the two most popular and regular ways that you'll see shippers request quotes and brokers provide quotes. Okay, so how many steps is the agent's scope of the business from start to finish? I'm just going to give you, I'm not going to give you every step. Okay. I'm going to give you the framework. A freight agent is responsible for finding shippers, quoting shippers, okay, finding carriers to cover those loads, negotiating those rates, dispatching the drivers into the pickup locations, tracking the load throughout the course, the life cycle of the load through to delivery. And then at that point, basically that's what we have. Okay. So freight agents are responsible for finding shippers, finding carriers to match and cover that load, dispatching and seeing the load from A to Z. Okay. So that's basically what freight brokers are responsible for. I apologize for the dogs in the background. I just had a package show up on my front doorstep. So if you hear the dogs in the background, that's my two crazy dogs. So yeah, that's the basic framework of what a freight agent is responsible for. Now, a broker is responsible for getting his broker authority and getting his bond and getting different insurances and software and invoicing and paying carriers and paying agents and all of that. So a little bit different responsibility between freight brokers and freight agents. Good question. I hope that helps. JT, do you think it's a good idea for me to start introducing my brokerage once I have my authority while I'm still on the road as a truck driver? If you think it's a good idea, I think it's a good idea. Personally, if I were you, I'd start having conversations with all the people on the shipping docks and letting them know that I'm also a broker and start developing a relationship and let them know that you have your own brokerage in addition to your own truck. And start developing relationships. That's the most important thing you can do. Right. And then developing those relationships over time. While drivers have a huge advantage over, someone like me that joined the industry with no experience. They understand the lingo. They understand they understand the equipment types. They understand the flow of how freight works. They understand, they know who shipping managers and logistics managers are because they're on those docks all the time, signing bills of lading, shaking hands, talking to people. So yeah, I would think you'd want to start as soon as possible. Even if you're not ready to start moving loads, I think you'd want to start planting those seeds. So my answer is yes. So a Twit card is something that you're going to need. A broker. Brokers don't have Twit cards. So carriers and drivers have Twit cards, but Twit cards have to do with going in and out of ports. So typically a broker is not going to be required, I don't think, to have a Twit card because you're not actually physically going there. Drivers will have to have a Twit card, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to double check that, but pretty sure that it's the drivers going in and out of a port. It's a security measure, right? Having a Twit card. So I hope that helps. I will double check that, but pretty sure that's the baseline. Why am I getting all these email notifications? I didn't shut my notification off. See, it distracted me. So whoever asked that question earlier, it happens to everybody. So here's a question from Shanarika. Fambro, with capacity issues the logistics industry is facing, what advice would you give new brokers that don't have carrier relationships but need to have loads moved for their customers? My suggestion would be to hustle and to differentiate yourself from those other carriers by treating drivers and carriers nice and with respect. My suggestion would be to pay them very quickly. My suggestion would be to make it more about them than it is about you. Figure out a way to serve them versus always selling and extracting. That's my macro advice. Okay. On a micro level, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have conversations with a lot of people that can help you in whatever lanes or whatever niche you're in. So start making phone calls and planting those seeds. There's an old book called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty by Harvey McKay. Can't recommend it enough. Okay. Old book by Harvey McKay called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. My suggestion is start digging your well every single day because you are going to be thirsty. If you're not thirsty now, you will be, because capacity constraints go up and down. Sometimes trucks are very loose because there's not as much freight as there are trucks. And sometimes there are, more loads than there are trucks, and that's when things get tight and are a little bit harder, but it's relationships that grease the wheels. So I hope that helps. Let's see. I have no idea. Mohammed, I have no idea. I don't do rating. I can't do rating for you dry vans. There is no per mile rate. You're going to have to figure out point A to point B, and you're going to have to talk to some carriers and find out what the going rate is. Do I need a carrier list prior to booking my first load? No, you don't need a carrier list because you can post your loads to load boards like the DAT and Truck Stop, and carriers will call you, or you will get matches for carriers that are in that lane. But it does help if you know your niche and your equipment type and you know the lanes that you're going to be running, then it does help to have that carrier list. But in a lot of cases, you're not going to know what lanes your shippers are going to want, right? You don't know exactly what lanes they're running. So it's very hard to source carriers that way. So my suggestion is it doesn't hurt to do that due diligence and start developing relationships with carriers. But when you start getting your first load and you're developing your niche out and you're figuring out exactly the niche, a lot of your carriers are going to come specific to the load details that you're going to be posting on the load board. So you're going to be getting inbound calls from carriers because you posted a load, and you're going to be making outbound calls to carriers where you're seeing trucks that match those loads. So hope that helps. So Ashish, I've answered this question 1,000 times. How can I provide a good quote with the right information on the quote? How can you provide a good freight quote? All right, there's 3 tools that you're going to use for freight quotes. One is you're going to use the rating tools that are part of DAT and Truck Stop and different rating tools that are going to give you data, historical data based upon what other carriers and brokers and shippers have moved that freight for. That's only partially valuable. You can't do rates based on that data, particularly in a volatile market. The second piece of data that you're going to use is to post your load, and people are going to be calling on that, or you're going to have a conversation with carriers. However, you're going to have that conversation, okay? You're going to call carriers, and you are going to validate and negotiate a rate from whatever point A to point B is based on that equipment. So you're going to do your due diligence. Before you provide a freight quote, the most valuable piece of data that you can find in the spot market particularly is how much does a truck cost today to go from point A to point B? Because a week from now or a month from now, that rate may be different because fuel may have went down, fuel may have went up. There may have been a global pandemic and rates may have went through the roof. Whatever the case may be, ultimately, the spot market is determined by what does it cost today to move a truck from point A to point B. Now, when the market is volatile, those rates can go up and down. When the market is a lot more stable, then they stay a little bit more standardized and they're not going to vary significantly, okay? So it's more important than ever during a volatile market where, we've got shortage of drivers, shortage of trucks. It makes your job as a broker and agent more valuable to the shipper, but you also have to do a little bit more due diligence when doing your rates, okay? So I hope that helps. All right. What's the difference between a freight broker and a freight agent? I think I answered this earlier, Jonathan, but a freight broker is a licensed entity by the FMCSA. They have a freight broker authority, also known as a freight broker license. They're approved by the FMCSA and the DOT to broker loads. That requires them to go through a few steps in order to get that license. There's no test or certification, but you do need an authority. All right. Now, a freight agent is someone that works under a freight broker, a licensed freight broker, typically as an independent contractor, and they work on a straight commission basis, typically from 50 to 70% commission based on the profit of that load. So if the load has $200, just for easy math, has $200 in profit, meaning the shipper is going to pay them $1,000, they pay the carrier $800, there's $200 in profit. The agent is going to get paid between 50 and 70% of that, which is anywhere from $100 to $140. And they get paid that commission for finding the shipper, finding the carrier, negotiating the rate, and making sure that the load picks up from point A and delivers to point C. The freight brokers then do the invoicing, and they do the paying the carriers, and they pay the agents. So the difference is one is licensed and kind of operates the overall business. An agent is an independent contractor or a partner that works under them on a commission-only basis. That's the basic framework. Okay? Hope that helps. Jocelyn asks, do you think a finder's fee or referral fee is a good tool to gain shippers? Yes, I do. I've talked about this before. If you search my YouTube channel, I think having a referral program is a powerful way to do it. My suggestion to you is watch that video, but don't be cheap. If you think paying $50 or $100 to get a referral that could generate you tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit is fair, then we are different people. My suggestion is make it worth their while. Either pay them a larger upfront fee, and then you take responsibility for monetizing that relationship, or you pay them a percentage of the profit or the percentage of the revenue based upon the success of the account. My biggest suggestion for you right now is to search my YouTube channel for referral fees or referral program. I know I have a video on it somewhere where I go into a lot more detail. I did an entire training on it. So I hope that helps. Good question, Jocelyn. I think your instincts are right on. Okay. Saritha asks, do you prefer DAT? I saw Truck Stop is more expensive than DAT. I like them both. My suggestion is try them both. Pick the one you like or use them both. We use them both. If you're on a budget, try one or try both. And then cut one out. That would be my suggestion. Stay with your favorite. They're both very, very good. They're both different. They have a little bit different user interface. They have a little bit different carrier interface and database. They have a little bit different pricing. They're different businesses within the same industry. I can tell you, you can't go wrong with either one. They have both been around for a very long time. I don't think that even if freight broker, or if Truck Stop is a little bit more expensive, you're still going to be able to cover that with moving one or two loads typically, right? It's a few $100, $200 or $300 if you get all the bells and whistles of everything, right? So you move a couple of loads and that's all paid for, right? It's going to pay for itself. This is a tool that you need. This is a tool that's going to pay for itself. So that's not where I would go cheap or where I would try to cut a lot of corners. Me personally, I'd have both. I'm scrolling here. Let me find another question. So Don asks, Dennis, I'm a new agent for a new brokerage. How aggressively should I promote myself as an agent as opposed to promoting the brokerage I work with? The ultimate goal is to grow my agency. Okay. So some of you may not understand this, but as an agent, Don's an agent working under a broker. And so when he reaches out to shippers, his question is, should he be promoting his agency, which maybe has XYZ name, or should he be promoting the brokerage? My personal opinion is as a new agent with a new brokerage, you want to create as little friction as possible, and you want to make it very clear what you're doing. So you don't want to introduce a lot of variables. My suggestion would be represent and promote the brokerage that you're working under, but the relationship that you have should trump the brokerage that you're working for. And as long as you didn't sign a non-compete, you should have no problem porting those customers over to a new agency or a new brokerage, or if you start your own brokerage. So just to try to create less confusion, my suggestion would be to promote the broker. Because if you say, well, I'm a broker, but I also have this agency business, it starts to complicate it, and it makes things more complicated, and things that are more complex, definitely when people start to hear complexity, they shut their brains off and they don't listen. And that's when you're going to get a lot of resistance. So keep it as with as little friction as possible. Focus on just promoting the brand of the brokerage you're working under. And then from there, you can always pivot away if you choose to launch your own brokerage later or switch to another brokerage as an agent. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you so much for being here. We've been on here for an hour, which is crazy. Goes by so fast. I want to thank you. Again, if you're new to the channel and you're just looking to get started, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained probably almost over 8,000, probably almost 10,000 students in the last decade. We offer a 60-day, 100%, no questions asked guarantee. So if you're not happy for any reason, we'll refund your money. You can't get any better than that. Just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. For those of you that are already students and enrolled, hit people up in the chat box and let them know that you're a student. Let them know that they can trust Freight Broker Bootcamp. Really, really appreciate you guys being here. I will be back next week with a new training, like I am every week. And I'll probably give away some more prizes. Maybe this next week I'll give away the shirt. Maybe I'll have that contest ready. Maybe I'll have that contest ready. Maybe by next week I can get it done. I'm not sure. I'm going to try to get that contest done because that's going to be really exciting. I'm super excited. I've spent a lot of time and energy promoting and building this YouTube channel. My goal is within a year to have this YouTube channel, well, by the end of this year is to have 50,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Right now, I think we've got like 25, so we got a long way to go. So we're going to step it up with the promo. I'm counting on you. If you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook, go subscribe to my YouTube channel. What are you, crazy? I release new trainings every single week. There's an entire set of videos there that I've put out for many, many years now. I give away more free content than most freight broker training programs make you pay for. So I hope you guys enjoy this. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I will see you next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. See you then.